Mayday call from the flight leader to the control tower. From the flight leader to the tower, there's a serious problem with the compass. Something unnatural is happening. We've completely lost control of the aircraft. It feels like some unseen force is pulling us toward an unknown destination. That chilling transmission was the very last message ever received by the American control tower from Flight 19 on December 5th, 1945. Moments later, all contact was lost. Flight 19 consisted of 5 military aircraft, and every single one of them vanished without leaving a single trace during what was supposed to be a routine training mission over the region known as the Bermuda Triangle. Things became even stranger when the U.S. Navy sent out rescue planes to search for them. One of the rescue aircraft itself suddenly exploded midair. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode where we dive deep into the mysteries that spark the question, why do things disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? And before we begin, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss our upcoming videos. The Bermuda Triangle is a stretch of the Atlantic Ocean, forming a massive expanse of water located between Bermuda, the coast of Florida, and Puerto Rico. Because this area is marked by 3 points, it became known as a triangle. And since one of those points is Bermuda, the name Bermuda Triangle stuck. The size of this triangle is enormous, about 1,125,000 square kilometers. To put that into perspective, that's just a little smaller than the entire state of Alaska. The mystery of Bermuda grew in popularity thanks to articles and research published by authors and newspapers that described the dangers of the area and the strange disappearances of both ships and planes. According to the legend, anything that passes through the triangle, whether at sea or in the air, simply vanishes without a trace. For example, in January 1918, the USS Cyclops departed on what should have been a short 3-day trip to port, yet the ship never arrived. People waited at the harbor for days, expecting it to appear, but it was gone. Now, over a century later, the ship is still missing. What makes the case even more bizarre is that the Cyclops never sent out a distress signal. It just disappeared, completely, and without explanation. And the US president at the time came out and said, "Only God and the ocean know where the ship has gone." From that moment on, the Bermuda Triangle began swallowing a huge number of ships, planes, and even submarines, starting a new chain of mysterious disappearances that newspapers and magazines quickly picked up. But to be honest, they blew things way out of proportion and turned it into a media frenzy. Leading the charge was the American news agency Associated Press and a magazine called Fate, which specialized in these kinds of strange incidents and phenomena. Then came a man named Richard Weiner, who wrote a book titled The Devil's Triangle, followed by Vincent Gaddis, who published another book about Bermuda, and later Charles Berlitz released one as well. That's when the whole thing exploded, with the media and the public fueling the idea that supernatural forces were behind the disappearances. People started offering all kinds of wild explanations. Some claimed that beneath the Bermuda Triangle lies the great city of Atlantis, and that what's happening is the curse of Atlantis on humanity. Another group insisted that the throne of the devil is located right above the Bermuda area and burns anyone who dares to come near. A third group said it was neither Atlantis nor the devil. They argued it was aliens abducting people who ventured near Bermuda, taking them away to torture them and even trim their nails. Then came a fourth theory, claiming that ships and planes passing through the area fall into a time warp that transports them to another era. Naturally, the scientific community rejected all of these ideas outright, dismissing them as pure science fiction. And as for those who tried to link the place to the devil's throne, there is absolutely no evidence in any holy scripture to support such claims. So, if all of these theories have no foundation, then what are the real explanations? Do ships and planes truly just sink and vanish in the region? In reality, a number of researchers began conducting serious studies on the Bermuda mystery, and in the end, they reached some logical explanations. The first real step toward understanding the mystery lay in methane hydrates. Researchers discovered massive amounts of methane hydrates being released from the ocean floor at extremely high concentrations in the area. Through experiments, they proved that these methane bubbles could actually sink an entire ship, because when the gas mixes with water at such high levels, it reduces the density of the seawater and creates a phenomenon known as foamy water. This type of water loses its ability to support the weight of a vessel, causing ships to sink suddenly without warning. Scientists from a Norwegian university even discovered a crater on the Bermuda seabed caused by a methane gas explosion, measuring about 500 meters in diameter. They confirmed that explosions of that magnitude could be so powerful that they shoot upward into the atmosphere, potentially interfering with the movement of aircraft as well. The second point in explaining the mystery comes down to tropical storms. These are extremely powerful storms that form in tropical waters and are very common in the Bermuda region. Such storms can literally toss ships around like toys. On top of that, there are suspicions that the region has a magnetic field anomaly that affects compass readings and interferes with navigational instruments. All of these factors combined make the Bermuda area an extremely dangerous zone for both sea and air navigation. But did the story end there? Not exactly. American researcher Lawrence David Cushy, the author of the Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved, drew attention to something very important: the role of the media. Cushy began highlighting contradictions in the popular stories and discovered that the media and certain authors had exaggerated and twisted the narrative. For example, there was the case of a sailor named Donald Crowhurst who was competing in a yacht race when he suddenly disappeared along with his boat. In reality, he later committed suicide due to psychological struggles. Yet the media and writers linked his disappearance to the Bermuda Triangle, even though all the evidence at the time indicated he had taken his own life. And the incident had nothing to do with Bermuda at all. The race itself was held in an entirely different location. And what makes things even more striking is that a ship carrying oil was once lost in the Pacific Ocean. Yet authors still attributed its disappearance to the Bermuda Triangle, even though the triangle is in the Atlantic. What's stranger is that whenever a ship went down or disappeared in the Bermuda region, the media and story-spinning authors would claim it happened while the sea was calm, with no waves at all. And if a vessel could sink in calm seas, then surely, they said, it must be aliens. But when David Cushy and a team of researchers went back and cross-checked the actual dates of those sinkings with weather experts and the Coast Guard, they discovered something remarkable. On those very days, the weather was extremely violent and the ocean was raging. Conditions that alone were more than enough to sink ships without needing aliens or demons in the story. The truth had been twisted, dramatized, and sensationalized by the media. Take, for example, one particular case of a shipwreck. Writers described it in pure science fiction fashion, saying the vessel vanished suddenly and later reappeared, with every crew member gone without a trace. Except the captain, who was supposedly found dead in his cabin, sitting calmly in his chair, holding a cup of coffee in his hands. But the International Maritime Organization flatly denied this account. They released actual photos of the wreck and images showing countless bodies recovered from the ship. The vessel had in fact exploded because of a malfunction in its fuel tank. There was no mysterious captain, no untouched coffee cup, just a tragedy that the press decided to dress up with a dramatic twist. Moving on to a more unusual point. The U.S., Coast Guard, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration both stated that the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle are no different from accidents that happen in any other part of the world's oceans. According to official statistics, the number of ships and planes lost in the triangle is roughly the same as the number lost in most other large bodies of water around the globe. So, what does that mean? It means the entire phenomenon owes much of its reputation to the way the media, books, and films sensationalized the story and turned it into something far bigger than reality. And to prove to you that the media deliberately chose to shine its spotlight on the Bermuda Triangle, let me tell you something you may not have heard before. Did you know there are other places on Earth far more terrifying than Bermuda, but very few people know about them? Have you ever heard of the Sea of Manukumi, or as some call it, the Devil's Sea? This area lies in the Pacific Ocean, surrounding Japan's Miyake Island, just 100 kilometers from Tokyo. When researchers ranked the 10 biggest disappearances in human history, statistics showed that 6 of them happened in the Devil's Sea. One famous case involved an American C-97 aircraft on its way to Tokyo Airport. On board were 67 high-ranking military officers. Even though weather and navigation conditions were excellent, the plane vanished. and it was only 2 hours away from Tokyo. Another case occurred in 1987 when the Philippine ship Carlota was crossing the Devil's Sea. Out of nowhere, it suddenly caught fire, despite not carrying any flammable materials. When the crew rushed to extinguish the flames at the bow, they were shocked to see fire erupting at the stern as well. Eventually, they lost hope of putting it out and surrendered to fate, only for the flames to suddenly die down on their own. The ship miraculously survived and returned safely to the Philippines, where it still rests in harbor today, with the cause of the fire remaining a complete mystery. In yet another incident, the Japanese government dispatched 100 scientists aboard a specially equipped research vessel to uncover the secrets of the Devil's Sea. That ship set out and was never seen again. This is a place where natural disasters and violent weather conditions are 100 times worse than those in the Bermuda Triangle. And the incidents that have happened there are the stuff of nightmares. Yet, despite all this, most people have never heard of it. Why? Simply because it never got the same media hype, sensationalized books, bedtime legends, or dramatic myths that made Bermuda famous. At the end of the day, it all comes down to what gets marketed. The more it's promoted, the more famous it becomes. In the end, there's a saying that goes, "The triangle is nothing more than an ordinary part of the ocean, with a bit of bad luck thrown in." The Bermuda legend is an artificial myth created by writers and authors, whether intentionally or not, since most of them relied on false evidence to stir excitement. For books, articles, and movies, the rule was simple. The more dramatic and thrilling the details, the more sales they could make. Just imagine if I made this very episode and put a devil's face on the thumbnail with the title, "The Secret of the Triangle Discovered." Do you think it would get more views? Of course it would. The reality is that the Triangle is simply a region with unstable weather conditions, and most of what happens there can be logically explained by severe climate fluctuations. If we go back to the case that first spread the myth of the Triangle, the plane that exploded in the Flight 19 story, it was later proven that this particular aircraft, the Martin Mariner, had known defects in its fuel tank. That's a perfectly logical reason for the explosion. What many people also don't realize is that dozens of ships and planes pass through the Bermuda Triangle every single day without any problems. A lot of people imagine it as some mysterious zone with strange terrain. But the truth is, from the inside, it's just a flat stretch of ocean. No islands, nothing unusual at all. Ships cross back and forth daily, and when an accident happens, it's usually sudden and weather-related. So in the end, the Bermuda Triangle is nothing more than a place where volatile weather conditions pose a threat to anyone passing through. And with that, we've answered the question, why do things disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? As always, if you have a question that keeps you awake at midnight, drop it in the comments below and we'll answer it in future episodes. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and for those of you watching us for the first time, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll get our videos as soon as they're out. See you in the next episode.